Hey, well, this is Ben Quick, the Executive Director of the Pioneer Valley Riverfront Club, and I'm here with Andy Fisk, the Executive Director of the Connecticut River Conservancy. And we have a lot
Great
in
to,
common. How are you,
that we
Andy?
do. I'm good. I am good. It's great to be talking to a fellow river lover and river user. That's for sure.
So, Andy, let's get right to it. I got a couple of great questions for you, I hope, and then we can get back to our day jobs. But Andy, I kind of like to start from where we have been and where we're going. Can you share with me any horror stories of what the Connecticut River was like in that time we've heard of when it wasn't the kind of place you'd want to recreate or fish necessarily?
Yeah, I think the Connecticut was unfortunately unloved, like so many of our rivers around the country. That for a very long time it was the place that even non-treated sewage was dumped directly. So I know that in the late 1950s, our board president took a trip down the river and he came to what is now Whetstone Station in Brattleboro, Vermont.
Hmm.
And at the time, that was the outfall pipe for the city of Brattleboro, went right into the river. And so he pulled up right there and avoided the raw sewage. But today, you can go to Whetstone Station and overlook the river, and it's beautiful. I
That's
think there's
exciting. Yeah. I mean,
tons of stories.
you must have seen examples up and down the river of progress like that. What's some of the biggest changes you've seen to the better from the Brattleboro situation?
Oh, I think if you look at data that describes the health of the river from even the 1980s, the amount and duration of when the water is not clean and healthy is so far fewer instances of that. So the vast majority of time, we're seeing that the river is clean, and that's a huge improvement.
Yeah.
So you used to measure bacteria in the many thousands. Now you see bacteria in the tens and twenties, and on a bad day, it's in for us, a bad day is in the several hundred.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
we even had standards a long time ago that said it was acceptable to have 10,000 units of bacteria. Today, the number is 250. So we've even set better goals for what is clean. Clean, long time ago, was, I wouldn't call it clean today.
Yeah, sure, sure. Do people still give you a second glance sometime when you talk about people boating, fishing, or even, getting wet in the river?
Yeah, it's surprising that there are a lot of communities that still have an image of the river as not safe at all. And I think that's part of our message, is celebrating the successes. There's been hundreds of millions of dollars invested in making the rivers clean. And that's really a great story to tell. And I think now, looking forward, it's about full of life.
Yeah.
Clean isn't necessarily healthy, and it's not necessarily full of life. And so that's the next job for all of us.
Interesting nuance. Yeah. What I mean, what's the price that we're all going to pay if we don't get this figured out? This vein of water running through our part of the country.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to think about it. We know that healthy uh, ecology and healthy ecosystems make healthy economies. And when you have ecological abundance, you also have economic abundance.
Mm.
And so the idea that you use a river system to get rid of trash and waste is completely wrong-headed. And what we found is we're paying the price to fix that mistake. And so now, as we make the river clean, healthy, and full of life, we know that there's going to be a huge economic impact for that. I mean, look what you've done at PVRC
Mm.
and the people that are coming back to the river in Springfield in a way that they weren't for a very long time. And so full of life means people, it means fish, it means birds, it means bugs, and all of that will create economic abundance.
I'm glad you shared that because the bell that I ring every day, all day long, has to do with revitalizing the Springfield riverfront. Your perspective as a non-Springfield native, but one who's very familiar with our situation. What do you think it's going to take for Springfield to have a vibrant riverfront, however that looks?
Yeah, I think unfortunately the river in many communities is struggling with past infrastructure decisions. And
Mm.
so many parts of the river are frankly cut off, like in Springfield and Holyoke, by railroad tracks. It's difficult to be able to access the river or the highways. So some of those infrastructure decisions make it harder. But when you have really appealing destinations like Riverfront Park, where the city and the state put a lot of money into making it an attractive place to go, and then PVRC is creating great amenities and giving people opportunities to experience the river in ways that they may not be familiar with. And that's the challenge. Getting people to do something that they've never done before in a different way, that takes work. That's
Yeah.
retail engagement. Uh, so the hard spade work of getting people to just come down and say, come on in this boat, let's go kayaking. Maybe you've never done it before,
Right.
or get
Right.
you in the barge and figure out how to hold that sweep and join a team to start rowing.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm not sure this news has been leaked to you, Andy, but we are bringing kayak rentals back to PVRC this summer.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll share with you briefly. The program's going to be branded Andy's Kayak Rentals. And it is named after somebody else, another Andy, who was a great supporter, proponent, and embracer of all things outdoors and on the river. He was a wonderful guy who
Oh,
died
that's
far too
awesome.
young from cancer, and his loved ones and his family have rallied behind this cause that let's call the kayak rental program Andy's Kayak Rentals.
Well,
We're
that's
still hoping to
great.
launch that before summer gets too long in the
Yeah.
tooth, right? Once we can get out. So great. Well, Andy, last question I'd love to ask you, is I've heard rumors about restorative properties of Connecticut River water. So how much did you drink last year? And is that your secret to health?
Well, I guess you could say probably wasn't last year, but I will admit, as I was learning how to scull, I spent a fair amount of time getting wet in the Connecticut River.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, so I put my time in getting wet and learning how to make sure I can keep those boats upright. So
That's great. Any last thing, any thoughts that you'd like to share about the Conservancy? Any exciting things you have coming up that would be of interest to the folks who are recreation enthusiasts in the Springfield area?
yeah, I mean, we got plenty of things that we're doing. I think what is really important to leave people with is looking at a big blue sky vision, right? So we talk about clean,
Mm,
healthy, and full of life.
mm,
So we know that there can be a lot more people on our river loving and taking sustenance from it. I think what's really important is looking forward into the future and thinking about, all right, what kind of river could the Connecticut be? And I want to leave people with one number, and that is 20 million. So right now we think about our iconic migratory fish, the American shad. And our goal is 1 million shad running up our river. And we know from historical records way back into the 18th century that river systems the size of the Connecticut could sustain fish runs of 20 million fish.
mm.
So imagine a migratory fish run where you really saw millions and millions of fish coming up our rivers like it used to a long time ago. Let's shoot for that. We've done tremendous amounts of work on the clean.
Yeah,
Let's work on full of life.
I'm in.
There we
Excellent.
go.
Andy, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Keep up the good work.